Hello and welcome everybody to the third episode of the Music Mentality podcast. That music you just heard before was none of us, of course, but that is actually Beethoven's string quartet, Opus 18, Movement 4. Is that right? Something like that. Which is relevant to a topic we're talking about later. And if those like 17 seconds didn't convince you that Beethoven slaps, I don't know what will. So, how's everybody doing today?
What's good?
Amazing.
I love you. It's been so long.
It has.
It's been a hot minute. It's actually just been a week. Actually, no, it's been like 2 weeks for them, for the live stream. So, but episode 2 is up on YouTube and SoundCloud if you want to go back and listen to that. We discussed some pretty interesting stuff. Wide range of topics in that one, actually.
Cutting yourself primarily.
Yeah, but as you can see, we're not at Area 51. So,
It's
are
true.
we cool? Are we cool? I don't think so.
That's not cool.
Yeah.
There was like 50 people at Area 51. So, give them a break. All right. So, as usual, we're going to start off the week. By the way, I realize that I keep asking the questions every episode. Start with brain, go in a circle, and then I never answer the question. That hasn't happened once.
You should go first.
Yikes.
Please.
Okay, so what have you been listening to this week, Jacob?
No. What have you been listening to this week, Jacob?
Oh, funny you should ask, Jonathan, because I was just thinking about what I had been listening to this week. Actually, I've been listening to a lot of different composers that at different universities and stuff, because I'm still trying to research for my grad school. Josue mentioned Jacob Zatecki last week, and I was listening to a little bit of that stuff, and it's so good. It's, as I described to him, the grooves and the rhythms are like Polyphia, but like slower and chill, right? And so it's not just all like, you know, like super technical stuff all the time, but the grooves are very similar.
Wow.
And it's pretty tight. I would recommend it. And Jacob spells his name like Jakub, I think. And
That's right.
It's totally whack. But yeah, that's been on my playlist.
All European.
Yeah, I think it. Well, I don't know if it's European. I think Josue said like Russian or something last week. I don't know what he is.
Polish.
Jacob, what did you do this week?
What did I?
Funny, I should ask.
What did I work on? Funny you should ask. Things that I worked on. Oh, this is actually interesting.
Okay.
So I've started working in. Does anyone know what the program Max MSP is?
No.
So Max MSP is actually what it is it's a visual programming language, and it operates in C, right? So just C code, and it's actually what a lot of the like digital musicians use outside of DAWs. And the reason for this is that it can actually do really, really complicated stuff and do everything to the exact T that you want it, because it's programming, but it's visual programming. So instead of actually like typing code all day, I'm not doing that.
Oh.
What I'm doing is I'm like, you create an object, and you like one of your objects can be like a metronome, and then you set your metronome. It's code, so it operates in like milliseconds or something, right? So it's like metronome 1000, and so the metronome will send out a signal every 1000 milliseconds, which is like a second. And so you like connect that metronome to like a MIDI setup, and you set that MIDI to that MIDI setup to a frequency, and it will, and then you set that up to like what functions as like an amp, and that will produce the pitch every like metronome beat or something. But basically, I've been working in this and trying to learn this because it's something that composers have to learn. And this is actually like the software that they use for a lot of like video game sound stuff. Like any like sound effect that you've heard in a video game was likely made in Max SP or Max MSP. See, but not that, because that's musical. But like think about like I don't know, like an alien shockwave sound or something. How is that sound
Uh,
created? Well, that's created in this max thing, and you also, I think it's how most people create their plugins for DAWs because you can create plugins in it. In fact, my assignment this week is to create essentially a delay pedal, but you get to control exactly every minute detail of how the delay is working, right? How long
okay.
is the delay to the millisecond? How many times does it repeat? Does it crescendo or decrescendo as it delays? To what extent does it do this? And so
Oh,
it's this really, really complicated program, but it's super in depth for music making and audio making. So that's really what I've been working on this week, is figuring that stuff out.
Well, I will buy it because you sold me.
I would not recommend it, honestly.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
you're like a
Never
math
mind.
person, so maybe you'll get it, actually, but
Oh,
it's quite complicated. It really is. And if you're not going to use it for anything, it's probably not worth your time, because it's easier to do everything in a DAW than it is to do it in Max. The only difference is that Max is as fine-tuned as possible.
okay. Who's next?
It's actually Brain. What have you been listening to this week?
Oh, I've been listening to the classics, to the oldies. I listened to Joe Satriani, to Foreigner, Jimi
Ooh.
Hendrix.
I
Chet
want to know what
Atkins.
love is. Is that one?
All right.
You
Hey,
know
Journey.
that one
What else?
hits
A lot of 80s, a lot of one-hit wonders, but some good guitar excerpts, right?
Yeah. How come?
Anything that's iconic, really, because I find myself in rehearsals doing a lot of noodling on just the most iconic stuff. Sweet Home Alabama, Sweet Child of Mine, Van Halen, right?
Mm. I like that. That's a good mix.
Yeah. And I think that if you're a rock guitar player, you need to know a lot of those quintessential riffs. They're good party tricks, and they are part of your rep. So yeah, I've been listening to a ton
Stevie
of
Wonder?
oldies.
Have you listened to Stevie?
I have not lately.
Oh, okay. What did you do this week, Brian?
Oh, what have I worked on musically? Right?
Yeah.
Octatonic scales and
Nice.
melodic minor. Doing modes of the melodic minor and all that stuff. I'm really trying to get that Coltrane level of understanding, right? But that is a lifelong quest, and
Can you show
part
us?
of me thinks that, you know what, I'm restringing this guitar right now, actually, to do it. And there's a reason the strings are dead and have to be replaced, right?
So I recently had some viewers on the podcast contact me about just general thoughts on the podcast, and something that they said was, could you explain some of the more elaborate concepts that I don't get? And I was like, well, I don't know where we stop explaining things and where we do. Like, maybe we assume that our viewers understand the number system, and then beyond that. But
Yeah.
I'm just going to mention it since you said you were working with the octatonic scale. So the octatonic scale is actually sometimes called the diminished scale. And what it is it's basically just whole step, half step, over and over and over again, or half step, whole step, half step,
Oh,
whole
that
step,
is
over and over again.
octatonic. I
And
haven't heard that in a long time. Okay, sorry.
yeah. And it's called the octatonic because it's actually an 8-note scale, right? Before you loop all the
Right.
way around. It's used a lot in like metal, and I mean any deathcore album is probably using it. But yeah, so there you go, octatonic scale.
Absolutely.
No, like Charlie Parker, that diminished scale lick thing, he does that a lot. It's a lot in jazz too. But
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So playing with those and then playing with melodic minor, I realized that jazz melodic minor, which I will actually explain this in simpler terms, it is a it's a major scale with a flattened third.
Yeah.
And that is a difficult and twisted scale to wrap your head around because your muscle memory continually wants to play through your major scales that you've just kind of memorized or your minor scales. And especially because when we practice the melodic minor stuff, we play it as a major scale with the flat third going up. But then we play it as a natural minor scale descending, but the jazz melodic minor doesn't have that alteration. So it really plays with your head.
Oh, wow.
Especially if you're trying to do sequences and stuff and arpeggios through all that. Yeah, your muscle memories, it's like my mind is telling me no, but somehow my fingers know, you know. Yeah. Anyway, rant over.
That's sexy. I need to try that.
That's super cool, actually. And it's funny you mentioned it because I was like, well, also in jazz, you don't, I mean, you use the Dorian scale a lot, right? For your minor chords. And so I was like, well, is it like, should we call it Dorian sharp 7 or something if you're doing it descending too? And it's like, I don't know. I'm sure there's like a name for it other than the jazz melodic minor scale, right? I'm sure there's some fancy like modal name, right?
Yeah, I remember I was
melodic minor scale or super Locrian. Actually, Locrian sharp 2 is the 5th mode or something of it. And yeah, and then there's one called super Locrian that I mentioned last time. Yeah, people make like infinite names, and I think Jacob Collier had some cute little video on YouTube where he was like naming a scale.
I saw that. He was with some other guy.
Yeah.
They were just singing to each other.
But yeah, and those are all rabbit holes, right? Who cares what you call it?
True.
For real.
Yeah, as long as, I mean, there are so many scales out there actually at this point that don't have a name. And there's some that actually have the same name. I recently discovered, this is going to be super nerdy, but in Overwatch, there's a new character in Overwatch named Sigma, and he has this, he's like insane, and he keeps hearing this melody in his head, and I was like, what is this melody? And it's actually using a hexatonic scale that just goes minor third, half step, minor third, half step, minor third, half step, and what it does is it creates a 6-note scale. But there's like a lot of hexatonic scales that use different intervallic relationships. But they're all just called hexatonic scales.
The blues scale is a hexatonic scale.
Sure is. That's right. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we play all kinds of things on a regular basis that have all kinds of names for them. And
5, 6. Oh, it's 6. You're right.
I don't worry about that.
I forgot.
So if you want to know what the blues scale is, so hexatonic just means it's a 6-note scale, and the blues scale is actually just a minor pentatonic scale. So if we're in A minor, let's say it'd be A, C.
Here we go.
D. Are you gonna play it? Yeah, exactly. So A, C, D, D sharp, or E flat if you want, E, and then G, and back to A, right? And so it's just a minor pentatonic with the sharp 4 giving that chromatic motion. And that's how you play blues.
So that's the augmented 4th hexatonic scale, right?
I don't know, dude. This is theory beyond me right now.
No, we should just make up the name for it. The augmented 4th hexatonic scale, right?
Oh, yeah.
Let's
So
just
if you're
call
out
it
there,
something completely
have a
absurd.
scale, let us know in the comment section below.
Oh, we got Kick and Rooster in the chat. What's up, Kick and Rooster?
What's up, Kick Rooster? I love you.
I like Kick and Rooster too.
Is that Gilbert?
That is.
Oh man, I miss that guy.
Yeah, that's him.
Experto, what's up?
Hey buddy, what's up?
What?
All right.
Why don't you have something better to do?
All right.
Jonathan, what have you been listening to this week, my man?
Oh man, I've been listening to math equations and math equations and math equations.
That sounded like a prog band at first when you said math equations. I was like, okay, I'm interested. Math equations.
I've listened to so much jazz this last week. It's weird and it's good. And I've been listening to Mexican music like always. I guess the person that I've listened to, I will talk about it in a minute because we're gonna have like a total talk about it, and we're gonna talk.
True, true, true. Talk, talk, talk.
Um, I've been listening to the voices in my head too. They just talk a lot. They tell me to do things. Okay, I'll stop. That's it. That's all I really listen to.
What have you
Jazz.
been
I listen
working
to a
on?
lot of jazz.
Have you been practicing this week?
Yeah, actually, and it's crazy. Like this past week, I really stressed out more than I usually do with practicing. Like it was weird. I was really getting like anal. The right word is anal because my on my high notes they would like be out of control, and I was like, why is this happening now? And then like I was biting too much on my lip, which is a saxophone thing, and I wasn't like using enough of my lip, so it was like too much, not enough muscle between the lip and the reed, and it was just messing everything up. And I went through like a midlife crisis for a whole 3 hours practicing at night, just long tones. It was just stupid. And then finally the next day, I was like, I looked at some people's mouths and I was like, let me try that. And then it was terrible. I hated it. And then I was just like, okay, let me try to find a middle ground. And now I'm happy again. so so like with saxophone playing, it can be so back and forth because I don't practice enough. I'm not consistent enough. I need to do more. But yeah.
Is there a reason you're not in lessons to like have a teacher to help you out figure that stuff
You're
out?
gonna give me $25-$35 a week, baby?
No, like community college lessons, which are like, what are they? Like $150 for 16 lessons or something?
I think it calculated to be about $25 an hour at the end of the thing, which is true. I should do that, right? It's just the part of me says if I go back to San Jack, it's kind of like I was there so long, I'm kind of embarrassed. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if I go back to bleep, 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 bleep,
I mean,
Why?
yeah, you shouldn't be.
I don't know. I was there too long. Like, I fell in love there, and then I lost my love, and then I lost. No, I was joking.
Well,
But yeah.
I mean, I would encourage you just to go back. I mean, I hate the academic side of it that's built in for a college thing. If you're just wanting to go to get better, they're like, grades, and you play in lab or studio or whatever. But as long as it makes you a better musician.
Well, the cool thing is if you just sign up for lessons and you're not like a music major, you don't even have to do that. You just like go to your lessons, and it would be me and Tobin. I think he's still. I mean, it'd be me and Bleep Bleep because I think he's still there.
Yeah, I think so. Alternatively, you could consider asking Bleep Bleep Zilla Zill. You could consider asking Zilla Zill for technique lessons.
Because he's close. He was from a place close to Japan where they had Godzilla, so we'll call him Zilla Zill.
That's right.
There you go.
But yeah, you could find someone like that who would give you lessons for cheaper.
All right, Josue.
Josue. Oh, Jonathan wants to host today, so Jonathan.
Josue, what did you listen to last week? Let us know.
I listened to an album called Pocket Change by a drummer named Nate Smith. I don't know if you guys have heard of him.
Literally sick as fuck. I love Nate Smith. He's pretty technical, and he has.
Are you for it?
And he's on Facebook a lot, I think. So
yeah, that's the guy, dude. Like he's got like such cool broken time kind of feel. So I've just been like dissecting that, listening to it a lot, and just a bunch of random stuff. Like
Just finished this restring.
Thanks.
How long did that take?
We're at 19 minutes right now.
All right, now work kind of slow because I was talking.
Okay, but you just interrupted Josue for that.
Dale.
Not really.
bastard. I'm gonna get him later.
Continue. Whoever was actually talking.
Well,
I think it was.
Is that all you listened to?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to so much other stuff. I don't remember.
Cool. So
That's just one of the highlights.
What did you do this week then? And what did you practice more specifically?
I went to Austin, which was a trip. That was cool.
Nice.
I didn't practice a lot at the beginning of the week, but then after work got canceled and all this rain stuff, I mean, there's nothing else to do.
What? Imelda.
Oh.
Yeah, Imelda.
I totally forgot that y'all were in like a giant tropical storm for several days.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Freaking,
Yikes.
they took her off to Ofrenda again. Oh my god. Anyways, so you went to Austin?
Yeah. And then I practiced playing or double bass for somebody's piece that is very difficult, but we're making some progress. And then I just practiced like a tremolo thing that's really that's kind of difficult, and I've never had time to actually sit down. And I stayed up till 5 a.m. last night, which was a very bad decision, but I made some progress with
You're cool. You're cool.
flamenco tremolo stuff.
That was great.
Yeah, that's it.
Did you watch that Elliot Cole thing I sent you? The composer, Elliot Cole? Okay, I guess not. That's fine. I sent it to you, hosted by Ambrain. It's a modern composer, and he did like a 13-minute suite for classical guitar. My gosh, the right hand never stops moving. It just never stops. Anyway.
What's next?
I'll have to check it out.
Next is actually our main topics. Jonathan,
Jonathan.
do you want to go first because you're limited on time here? You're going to be in and out? Okay, let's do your topic, Jonathan.
Okay, I actually wrote stuff because I am so professional. I'm going to read what I wrote. So the guy I want to talk about today, I will send y'all a picture real quick.
Don't send it through Skype.
Don't? Okay,
No.
I need y'all. Okay, then let me text it to y'all. Well, anyways, he's a jazz trumpeter. I'm not going to send you a picture, but I sent you his name. I spelled it wrong. It's actually Takuya Kuroda. Takuya Kuroda.
Cool.
And he's like, I found him, let's say, a while back. I want to say 2015. And I just can't stop listening to him. He's Japanese. He's Japanese, first off. He's super cool. And he has an afro. He has an afro. And, yeah, like, I guess if you were going to say his style, it's kind of like hard bop, but with like R&B and with some of like a little bit of electronic in it. So it all like just all pops really cool. And I guess my favorite thing about him is his soloing. It's kind of like the way he does his phrases is like this. It's like he'll start something, but it won't just like fade away. He's going to be like, wait, but then this goes here. And then this goes, and then it pops right here. And then he's like, okay, now I'm going to say something a little bit melodic. And it's like, he does that a lot. And I just love to listen to this guy. This like Takuya Kuroda, guys, is the shit. So like, I don't know if y'all listen to much jazz. A little bit more about him. He came to the United States he studied at Berkeley a little bit, and he met this guy named Jose James. And they've been doing like a lot of stuff over the past like 10 years. So like you can always find him with Jose James. And that's how I found out about Nate Smith too, because Nate Smith plays with them a lot. Because Nate Smith, he does like everything, right? He can do jazz, R&B, and mix it together. And so like that's what I meant by jazz and R&B. With Jose James and Takuya Kuroda, them together, it's like a jazz R&B thing that just never stops. So I'm gonna stop talking now because that was a lot of words. Y'all should check him out.
So my first instinct is, I mean, the fact that you said he went to Berkeley, I was like, kind of waiting to hear what his education was. Also, you said he was Japanese. Is he currently like in the Americas, or is he like doing jazz in Japan?
Well, if you look at his Instagram, he just went to a jam session yesterday in Japan. He's just like, I'm going here to jam, guys. You know, like, so you could have showed up and jammed with him. He's like this, just like any other guy in this world. So, but he's in Japan. He goes from Japan to the United States a lot. And yeah, I would say like, yeah, he went to Berkeley, but he doesn't sound like a lot of people. He has like his own really distinct style. Yeah. Like I feel like Berkeley, I listen to people on Berkeley, but like that go to Berkeley, for sometimes, but
Jazz.
like Takuya is really like unique, I guess.
Does he since he's Japanese, does he mix in like Japanese folk stuff, or is it like pretty American like jazz and American R&B?
It's like I don't know what Japanese folk stuff is, because when I hear Japanese music, it sounds like jazz too. Like it's weird. I don't know if y'all listen to any of it.
Do you listen to anime music?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like a lot of anime can feel like has some jazzy things to it, but they're actually really structured jazz. You know, it's like here's a thing, now here's where it gets really exciting, and then here's this. Like that's another thing. It's not. He doesn't do that. I don't know what that means to be Japanese, like Japanese music. Honestly, I don't know what that.
Well, like Japanese, so like Japanese folk music. I'm not really sure. Like my first thought, this is going to be totally racially incorrect, but my first thought was like, oh, pentatonic scales, but no, that's Chinese.
No, it's not like that.
So yeah, I'm not really sure what is in Japanese music. I can say that anime music is obviously not the Japanese folk music, but like J-pop is a thing, and I mean, you say anime jazz, the first thing that comes to my mind and probably everyone's mind is the Cowboy Bebop theme, right?
True. Yeah. So no, like his inspirations, like I was just reading them online, but it's kind of like I saw an interview where he said he looked a lot at Dizzy, right? Like, and it's kind of like eye-opening because like when you listen to Miles, it's not really always that fast. It's really just like a really melodic ideas separated and they work together a lot. But with Dizzy Gillespie, it's kind of like he was like doing a lot of what Charlie Parker was doing. So it's always like a lot of bop, right? But somehow he like made that work with today. So I don't know if you were gonna compare him, maybe like he's like a Dizzy kind of guy, and he incorporates Afro style stuff to his music. But yeah, I'm a jazz nerd.
Tight. How does he mix the R&B with the jazz? So is it like, so formally, is he doing standard jazz forms, or is it more like modern fusion stuff where you don't really know where it's going? And then is there like kind of verse chorus stuff of R&B? Is it R&B rhythm section, or you know?
Good
Is it
question.
Dilla
Good
beats?
question.
So like I'm like totally not good with beats and guys. So like I just read it says R&B, so I say R&B. But I think
Don't confess that.
the way I understand it is like I guess it is the beat. I don't know, honestly. I don't know how to answer that question. I'm ignorant.
So I mean, do you hear
should listen
anything
to
R&B in it?
I mean, I guess just the flow, right? Like, and it can be chill sometimes. I don't know. I really don't know how to describe it like that. Like when you tell me like that, I would just tell you to listen to it, and you should listen, see how you take it. Because I can't really tell you.
Oh, so you can't defend your answer?
Not musically, because I'm stupid and I
I'm
just
just
like
kidding.
to listen to music.
There's a general
Hey,
rule.
I actually
Go ahead.
looked up
You should just listen to him.
Nate Smith. I'm gonna listen to him.
Husway, we didn't get any of that. I'm so sorry.
Maybe the homework question for you is to go do that for me. There you go.
That's hilarious. I wonder if we should do a homework section. Tell us in the comments below if we should do a homework section. Actually, our homework should actually be answering questions from chat and comments and stuff, but we don't have enough people asking questions. Feel free to ask us any questions or theory, anything,
shit.
even if it's not related.
Please.
If it's theory, anything,
Questions now.
like we'll answer them.
Especially people we know. Give us some questions.
Honestly, I would like it if someone was
You
like,
did not finish.
can you guys explain secondary dominance to me? I'm not quite getting it. Like, that would be tight. All right. Cool. So what was his name again?
It was Takuya Kuroda.
Flaming-
Takuya Kuroda.
Kuroda? We shouldn't even try it with the Japanese. That's cool though. Does anyone have anything else to say on Takuya?
Maybe talk about
Yeah, I'll put this out there. I think the future of jazz in really the language of the exotic seventh chords and stuff like that, right? That I think is going to exist in a kind of R&B electronic hip hop state for a long time. I don't see it ever going back to big bands because it's not financially savvy. A lot of things that happen in music are financially driven, and big band might be gone except for the purists.
How does
And
that make you feel?
I don't have any loyalty. That's a great question. I don't have loyalty. to
Well,
the
doctor.
band, but it would be shitty to see something go that I've played a lot of. You know?
Okay, change topics.
No, I actually wanted to comment on the big band thing because I was thinking about this, and this will tie in a little bit to my topic later. But I was just thinking today, I was like, I don't have anything big bandy. The most recent piece that I wrote that was jazzy was like what I'm calling my jazz fusion piece that Brain and Josue are currently working on, and I'm working on. We've got a few other people working on. Hopefully, we'll get a recording of that soon. But
That I'm not a part of.
I'm sorry. It was a tenor sax roll, and it went to a tenor sax player. And it's not easy. None of it's like it's super hard. So I'm just gonna leave that there. Big band. Big band. So I was realizing a lot of the big band stuff is either like a lot of it's old and like tacky sounding, right? Very intentionally tacky sounding, right? And like super kind of square. Or you've got like the modern like funk rock stuff that people are doing to like try to revitalize big band as like a genre or whatever, which I think super works. And then there's not much else, right? And as a composer, I was like, well, if I do a big band thing, what am I going to do? And I was like, you know what? I should go into the territory and use the ensemble for something that they don't normally do, right? And I was like,
Exactly.
what can I do with that ensemble? And I'm like, they probably have never played something extremely dark and dissonant and sad and like evil sounding in their lives as an ensemble. Right? I can't think of anything that's like super, well, I don't want to say metal, but like, kind of in that dark vein or the gothic or the expressionist vein, right? Here we go. This is what I'll call it. Expressionist big band, right? Without the serialism.
Oh, great.
Without the serialism. Just like, or maybe even just like advanced chromaticism, like romantic music, kind of like Wagner taken to the next step, which is actually just expressionism. But why can't we write for big band stuff that is not big band sounding? Why don't people write more for this ensemble? It's such a diverse ensemble.
Well,
It's true.
I'm going to plug right now a group called Doc Loke and the Swangers from Houston, Texas. That is a group that plays in the big band style, and they're very new, right? But they do all the H-Town rap, and they even preserve the exact rhythm and pitch of the rap, right? So that people who want to sing along can. But they don't have a vocalist because all the lyrics are about illegal stuff, And they're very misogynistic, so... Yeah.
It's hip though, and we talked about that I think on the first episode.
Maybe.
Yeah, but yeah, it's pretty hip. But it's not original. it's also all arrangements of H-Town hip hop and rap, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I was just
So
go ahead.
the big band is a dance band. So I think your best bet, if you want to keep the big band thing going, is aim at whatever genre of dance is popular and funnel your big band players into that and try to write something with them to get people dancing, right? But somehow make the band crucial. Like EDM. You know what I mean?
Big band club music, says the chat.
Exactly.
Oh, techno swing, actually. Yeah, techno swing is pretty similar to that, isn't it?
I guess so.
Yeah, kind of. So should we answer questions now or at the end?
Now if they're here.
All right, let's. So, someone jokingly asked, "Explain secondary dominance," but I don't want to
No.
actually explain that because I said that.
No.
So someone asked, "What made y'all want to get so deep into music? What made some of y'all choose this as a living?"
It makes me horny.
Jonathan, is that all you have to say on this?
Yes.
All right.
Moving on. Brain, what do you have?
All right. I really didn't choose this. I have ADD, and grabbing a guitar is the only thing that demands 100% of my ROM or RAM. What's the terminology?
RAM.
RAM. Yeah, it eats up all of my processing, and I actually really need that. And in fact, it eats up more. It demands even more. And yeah, so I couldn't sit in a cubicle. I couldn't behave myself in any decent setting. So here I am with the dirty street musicians, you know.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Josue, do you have an answer to this?
Wait, what was the question again? My internet's like
Oh my
so messed
God.
up, dude.
No, his internet is sucking. What made y'all want to get so deep into music? What made some of y'all choose this as a living?
Ooh.
Oh. I don't know. Sucking and everything else. This is just the one thing that like, you know, I was always good at, and provided like a good form of expression, communication, and the fact that it's the best thing in the world to be able to do. And if you have an opportunity to wake up every day and do it, then that's what you're gonna do. That's what I think.
Given any other paths.
Can't speak for Jonathan.
No, there's always Jonathan.
Plus, you get to
But
hit stuff, dude. You're not allowed to hit people. Generally.
Oh, drummer.
Jacob, why did you do music?
Yeah, so pretty common thing that they say in music school is that if you can see yourself doing anything else, don't go to music school. So the question of what made y'all want to get so deep into music, and what made y'all choose this as a living. Well, with me, actually, so after high school, actually, I didn't do a whole lot in high school. And then after high school, I took like 2 years off to be like a pizza delivery guy. And there was this just urge like building in me over time, and this like self-anger and like just so upset with myself that I wasn't the person I wanted to be. I wanted to be able to sing. I wanted to be able to write music, play music with people. And I played in a lot of like Craigslist bands for a little while that never worked out, and I got super frustrated. And I went into music school after that, hoping to find people to play in a band with. But I think the reason I actually not even convinced I chose it as a living yet. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I haven't actually officially chosen music as a living. I'm actually just going through school and getting an education in it because I love it. And when I took theory in high school, I took I took a semester of theory in high school. That's when I knew that I loved music theory. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to learn as much as I can, honestly. because, and that's not a lot of people can say they love music theory, but that's probably the thing that has pushed me, right? It's just whenever I learn some new theoretical analysis or something, it's just pushed me, and I've become such a better composer, and I'm like, yeah. I'm still not sure I've chose it as a living, though.
I feel bad for my answer.
Do you
Fair.
want to give a real answer?
Oh, okay. I would say.
Wait. Before you say that, I want you to know that chat said they liked your answer.
Well, I mean, it wasn't a lie.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can't see below my chest right now.
The people in the chat don't realize that we're like a puppet to
I
them,
know.
and they can just keep feeding questions in and keep this thing going.
I can't believe
And
we have.
don't be shy. Don't be shy at all. Keep
Who
them
asked
coming.
for that question?
It was actually Kick and Rooster.
Say his real
I
name
know who
and
that is.
social security number, please.
Okay, no, I think with music, it's like
Torterto Gillo.
for me, it's really mental. Like I like extra things that make me use my brain, and I really don't feel okay unless I'm doing something that makes me use my brain. And so that's why I like music, and that's why it's like love hate, because usually music wins and I lose, but I still come back because I like doing difficult things, and I think music is one of those things. So that's why I do music, because I'm stubborn.
Hey, so let's move on to the next topic.
I have to go.
Okay, are you just gonna
I
go
love
AFK
you.
for a while? Are you gonna leave it on? Okay, he's leaving it on. Take it off. All right, tight. I'm gonna put his little image there. If I can, look how professional we are. Done. All right, so Josue is like in and out a lot, but Brain, what topic do you have for us this week?
All right, I have a great little topic for us. And I'm so glad you mentioned Craigslist bands, right? We have all done the Craigslist, the musicians for hire thing, the let's get together in a garage and go 3, 2, 1, go, and see if we're the next Motley Crue, right? And Motley Crue makes it look like that's the way it happens, right? Josue, if you're with me, say hey. But, so I wanted to know and maybe hear some of y'all's worst. I know he didn't respond.
All right, just continue.
It's been minutes. So, terrible gig experiences or terrible audition experiences, terrible Craigslist audition experiences where you go play with people who are just fucking living in roaches and drinking vodka and suck. Like, yeah, what do you got?
All right, do you want me to start and then we'll just like rotate and keep going, because we can probably do this all night, honestly.
Yeah.
All right. So, I'll start with this one. So the first one I started. I drove up. It was on the, I want to say, the far northwest side of Houston, and I'm from the southeast. For a Craigslist band that, well, they were like looking for bassists to play black metal, and I'm like, tight. You know what? I like black metal. It's actually really easy. It's a lot of just like tremolo picking, like octatonic scales, actually. And bringing it all together. And so I actually brought a friend with me because I was like, I don't want to drive up to Northwest Houston by myself. The first rehearsal's like super late at night, and my friend was a musician too, and I'm like, cool, let's just like see these guys, see what's up. And I'm like 19 at the time or something. And I get up there, and as soon as I get there, I walk in the door, and the first thing they say to me is like, hey man, you want to smoke with us? And I was just immediately done at that point. Like, it was because I was so committed to finding a serious ensemble, I was just like, in my heart, I already knew I was done because they were
Damn.
just sitting around smoking. And I was like, all right, you know what? Let's do this. I'll plug in. And I plugged in, and the drummer starts doing like blasts or something, and the guitarist starts playing something like super noisy. And then he like plays something super technical, and he's like, oh yeah, so this part is like this. And it's like, and I'm like, tight, got it, definitely. And they were like just kind of like super high and stuff, and within like 5 minutes or so I was like, this, I can tell this is going somewhere, and I kind of just left after like an hour of driving.
Dang. All right, so that's another interesting question that I'm getting is, what do you do when you're at a jam and you're 45 minutes, an hour away from home with a bunch of people you don't know, and they're just, I hate to say it, but pretty much losers. And this ain't going anywhere, and you know it from the second you arrive. You know, how do you go about playing nice for all that time? And yeah, putting on a smile, pretending to learn the new riff that's in E minor. Go figure, right?
Well, I mean, what do you do? I've like faked it through that stuff, and then eventually just like there was one band that I actually was just like, man, you guys are super childish, and I'm leaving. Not because they were like, that makes me sound really bad. Not because they were like just like playing riffs and stuff. There was like drama and stuff, high school drama, and I was like, you guys are like 24, 25, and I'm like 19, and I don't want this drama, so I'm leaving. But I remember being with that band and then being like, this riff is super tight, and I'm like, yeah, okay, let's bear through it. And they jokingly named the band Beans and Rice, because it was 2 Hispanics and 2 white guys.
Wow. Josue, do you have any horrible Craigslist band stories, audition stories, worst gig ever type stories?
Nope.
What? You've never had a bad gig?
Terrible sound?
You just told me the other day you had like a bad gig. Someone called you to do drums for them and it didn't pan out. Oh, I'm guessing he like legit can't hear us. His connection seems like it's just that bad. Oh no.
All right, well then I will tell one.
Go for it.
For the live stream. One time I had a friend from like high school, right? He was in a band that was very breakdown oriented, and it had 2 screamers, 1 high screamer and 1 low. Bring me back to the whole idea of screamers, okay? But they had 2, 1 to do high, 1 to do low, so they could do like death octaves or whatever the hell they called that, right?
Right.
And so I get there, and they're playing in E minor, just a bunch of heaviness nonsense, right? But the guitar player, one of them had a terribly out-of-tune guitar. And I told him at some point, and I was known as being a good player, and I was like, hey, you should tune your guitar. I have a tuner. And he was like, you know what? If you don't like it, then why don't you play? And right then and there, while I was watching my friend's band, their guitar player quit, grabbed his equipment, and left the garage, the hot garage, to go home. And they had a show that evening, because it was that kind of band. Like, we're playing at the Pit, a place called the Pit, right? Smells like a pit. And is a pit. And anyway, they scheduled a show like the day of, and so I rehearsed in this hot garage for probably 3.5 hours, doing nothing but breakdowns in E minor of various sorts, right? And then I go and I play this show with them. And there's a picture on stage, and 3 or 4 of the members of this band are shirtless. at the gig. It's just terrible. And the singer, who I will name with his nickname, his name is Nubs, and he's missing a finger. That's why they call him Nubs. And he was known for having enormous testicles. And on stage, while we're playing at the Pit, this first show with this band, he proceeds to unzip his jeans, pull his testicles out, not his peat, though. His peat stayed hidden, but just the testicles came out. And he's holding them like a brain for the audience to look at. And it might have been the best gig ever, but I didn't get paid, right?
Man, that sounds like a Pit story. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And we were telling gig stories and bad band stories, which was Brain's topic this week. So, Jonathan, do you have any bad, like, gig or something stories?
I can just say that I'm bad at any gig I go to.
That's funny.
I guess bad experiences. No, I don't think I've had them. But I'm not really professional enough to even care if something's bad. So there you go. I'm lame.
Yeah, so that's interesting. That you've never actually had any bad experiences. Brain, did you have another topic? Because you said you had like 4 mini topics or something.
Actually, yeah, I did. I had a technique kind of question for y'all.
Okay.
Right? So I had an epiphany while I was teaching a lesson. I'm going to put the guitar down for this one. All right? So I gave my student the assignment to do some playing and some listening, and the listening was Jitterbug Waltz by Chet Atkins. And he's a phenomenal guitar player from Texas. And I also gave my student Jimi Hendrix's Voodoo Child to listen to. That didn't hit home, but Chet Atkins hit home. And my student said something that hit home with me. They said, I like his technique. And I like the sincerity with which he plays. And I want to look at that in close. So his technique. This is a student who isn't technical, but they can just hear a cleanliness and a precision to what Chet Atkins is playing, and he is a very clean player, right? So I thought that was cool, but it's kind of almost opposite or antithetical to say then, but the sincerity and the thumbprint with which he plays, is also cool. And this is what I wanted to kind of throw out here. Technique, right, is kind of for anyone who's watching, right, who doesn't know, when you learn an instrument, you're taught pretty much how everyone else learns to play. You're all taught a pretty generic, almost foolproof way to hold the instrument. Usually these things are to prevent injury, right? Like carpal tunnel and just bodily harm, right? People would hold all kinds of instruments silly ways. Have you ever seen a violinist, for example, right? I still can't get on with that. Holding a violin with your neck. But that's a tangent for another day, right? So technique is kind of something that takes players who might all be scattered across different skill levels and styles and kind of refines them into something which is very similar in a lot of people's opinion, right? But so my student was talking about how she could hear Chet Atkins's thumbprint, right? And we don't associate technical playing with having a thumbprint in an identity, because the identity in people's playing is often the imperfections, the little spots where the technique is a little broken, right? And for whatever reason, it feels good. So, yeah, I kind of arrived at the idea that Chet Atkins has gotten so technically proficient that now he can do anything he wants. He's at the place we all aspire to be, right? Where you have mastered every technique to the point that anything is on the table, and you can even intentionally make things sloppier and looser to fit the stylized thing you're after, right? And so yeah, what are y'all's thoughts, right, on the way we teach technique? Also, how, like I said, it molds people to be similar, and it's very few people out of that journey with their own identity, right? But she said something that was an epiphany to me, that Chet had so much technique and an identity. What is Jonathan doing too?
Well, it's because you're
Yeah.
your mic kind of like roboted out, but
Mine.
yes, yeah, but no, that's like that really speaks to you.
Dude, it's an android.
Oh, is it my voice?
No. Sorry, that was someone in chat. I don't know who that was.
So like, I don't think I should talk. I think somebody else should answer.
No, go ahead, Jonathan. I mean, I've got replies, but I always have replies.
Well, no, it's like the way Brian speaks. It makes me realize that, like, I really got a lot of shit to work on, because like I always want to sound like somebody, but really like I should be able to be clean in the first place, and I can't even be clean sometimes. So it's like I really am not. I'm trying to start at point Q whenever I'm really still at point A. It's like eye opening. Yeah.
The best players make me feel that way.
Yeah. So that's all I have.
Josue, I know you're a little lagging behind, but do you actually have a reply? Because we can hear you as soon as you start replying. I'm gonna guess not.
No, he has one.
I'm just gonna smile.
You know we can hear you. That's okay.
I'm about to watch our live stream from my phone, so it'll be faster than when I'm watching you guys.
All right.
Somebody should call.
I'm not gonna comment. Hey.
No.
All right. So that's hilarious, actually. Please do that.
Is somebody else talking? Okay.
Sorry, I'm talking. So, well, first of all, I want to reply to Jonathan's thing about I want to start at point Q, but I'm actually at point A.
Exactly.
First of all, that implies that there's a Z that you get to that's actually perfection in technique, which doesn't exist, I don't think. I mean, Yo-Yo Ma still works on technique all the time, right? But with that in mind, we learn repertoire to specifically focus on technique that we can't do. So to say you want to be at point Q when you're actually at point A is like, well, in order to get out of point A, you kind of have to jump to like point C and practice the repertoire of point C to get there, right? But honestly, like, Brain, your comment on the technique, it almost doesn't matter as long as it's healthy. And actually, it doesn't matter as long as it's healthy. Now, violinists, you mentioned the neck thing. I'm sure there's a bad way to harm your neck doing that, and they have to be taught. If you type something, it appears on screen, Jonathan.
I don't have my phone next to me.
Right, like you can hurt your neck doing that. And so there's obviously like things to avoid, but I mean, what is like is Jimi Hendrix like the standard example of like bad technique that still works or something?
Kind of. And I don't know how much more you have to say on that, but I'd like to ask a group question and take a poll.
Sure.
All right, raise your hand if your favorite player is the fastest player you can think of. Okay, so that kind of settles it. And I know Josue's lagging, but I doubt his favorite player is
definitely
the
not
fastest guy he can think of.
Nah, he's not picking like George Callias or something as his favorite drummer. No way.
No.
So, technical does not equal good. Let's have a group consensus about that.
And
right?
no, I disagree with that.
Or best, right? Because the technically most proficient characters are not our favorites. Right?
Dude, the problem is music's subjective. But I think you can say someone is a good player if they can play ridiculously fast, because you can't just cheat your way to that.
They are a skilled player if they can play fast. But what I'm saying is technique and speed and all the things that come with practice does not equal good music.
No.
It's not it's not a causal relationship, right?
Right.
And something else, are we all kind of in agreement, or can you see why some people think that even studying technique kind of limits and shrinks you just for the necessary time it takes? And a lot of blues players say never learn theory, never do the technical journey, because you'll lose your soul or you'll lose your mojo. Can you see why that is thrown around? Right?
Definitely.
And Guthrie Govan actually thinks that that's people who are kind of self-conscious about youngsters who might learn some theory and surpass them. They're trying to feed kind of bad misinformation down into these youngsters. What you got, Jacob?
All right, so the theory thing is just total, like, anyone who thinks that theory will make them a worse musician, get out of here. 100%. I'm like, your opinions are all discredited to me. Theory makes you a better musician. It makes you the best you as a musician, because your voice cannot be properly articulated unless you are knowledgeable in the area. It's about speaking, right? Do you speak C spot run fast, right? Or do you speak an elaborate sentence that illustrates where this person's spot is running, how he is running and manipulating his legs in the area and in the environment and stuff, right? It's how you can speak, right? It's Shakespeare versus, your little 8th grade book or whatever. Now, Shakespeare's an interesting example just because Shakespeare wrote kind of backwards, right? But that's a whole nother topic. But as far as technique goes, someone else want to jump in on that? Okay. So the main thing I wanted to ask then is, as far as technique goes, since you're saying your mojo, your twang, your soul, whatever makes you the player that you are. Let me ask you guys this. Do any of you recognize a skill or an aspect of your playing that makes you yet? Because I know typical fills and stuff that I do, right? And I know generally how I improvise, but technique-wise, I can't point out anything that makes my sound distinct other than the tone or whatever, right? Is there anything that you guys have that you think, oh, this makes me distinct from everyone else?
That's an interesting question that almost you should be asking in reverse. Does anyone hear anything in your playing? Because it's really, we all know that your voice is not what you think it is on a recording and to everyone else, right? And same thing with your sonic voice, right? And we've all heard recordings of ourselves that we thought were hot and we're not, right? So maybe you should be asking us. That was not an answer. Jonathan, go. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. No. Oh, no. Well, I mean, yeah, well, the question, I was like, it's kind of like what Brian was saying, where it's like, you should be asking if other people hear it in you. Well, when you said that, it's kind of like what I was thinking when Jacob was talking. It's kind of like whenever I played around other people, and it was just whenever I was starting to play around people who improvise, which is like at San Jack, I could tell, the kind of things that they like to do a lot. And I know I have tendencies too, and I don't like them because they're not intentional, right? And so I do recognize other people's, things that make them sound like this.
Wow.
but
Interesting.
I feel
Yeah.
like for me, I don't know. Well, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can hear
Yeah.
you. You're good, dude.
Like when I pick up a guitar, I kind of play almost like flamenco-y things, even if it's on electric, like certain scales and stuff that I use that I feel like are kind of my go-to like vocabulary, which
Yes,
I feel
for
like I should
sure.
break apart part of. And with drums, I feel like it's my touch on the kit, because uh, I don't particularly hit hard. I can hit hard, but I feel like I keep things kind of relatively light whenever I play drums. I guess that just comes from like being in a neighborhood where it's like um, this neighborhood where it's like I couldn't be loud, so I just kind of always played quietly. I feel like I don't know. What would you say, Jacob? What do you hear? Can you tell me apart?
Yeah, so I
Are there
think
things you can kind of hear in my playing?
yeah, and I was actually because you're the only one I think that I can actually comment on, because I've played with you in a lot of different genres and styles and stuff. And first of all, I want to iterate that I don't think it's note choice, right? Like someone saying in the comments how they play piano like a vocalist, right? I don't think note choice is what we're talking about here, because note choice just means you haven't expanded your vocabulary yet, right? To the point. Like I remember watching a video on Billy Sheehan talking about how he used to just run pentatonic scales all day, and he did that for years and years and years as a popular musician, right? And then was like, man, I need to expand this, right? I don't think we're talking about note choice. But Brain was talking about like technique, and there's definitely something about your feel, Josue, that I've said this before, even though like you're not a metal drummer, but I have you working on my piece that has like crazy fast double bass because I trust you and everywhere else, and I'm like, this is the drummer that I want. And like thinking about thinking about my church has rotated a lot of drummers the past couple weeks, and they all have something a little different. Like one of them is like has a lot of inner work, right? That's like super like off rhythm, right? A lot of inner work polyrhythm type stuff, and but he's not like super in line with the click all the time, right? And there's another one who's like super in line with the click, super technical, but I don't think has the best feel in the world, right? I can't sit in the pocket with him as the bass player super well, you know? And you, Josue, I think you just, this is going to sound super lame, I think, because I can't describe it any other way than that you actually just constantly have groove. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Nothing I've ever heard you do doesn't groove. And I wish I could describe
Sick.
that in a better term. I wish I could describe that better. But I think you're spot on about the light touch thing, too. I don't think you play very hard, except that time that you soloed on Discolored Blue and you let out your rage on stage. That was tight.
With
But
brushes.
yeah, but the kick. I listened to that the other day. Man, that kick is peaking the microphone like from across. It's like crazy.
I remember the audio guys got mad at me. They're like, "Why did you do that?" I was
That's
like,
awesome.
"I don't
love
know."
it.
Fuego.
I mean, Brain, I mean, if I'm talking about Brain's technique, I don't think there's anything I can point out about Brain's technique specifically that makes him sound like him. I know that he can play jazz well, and I can hear his jazz playing in my head. Like, I can audiate it, and I can audiate his metal playing in my head as well. But none of it stands out as something different than other guitarists I've heard.
Yeah, if no one else has thoughts, I can kind of tell what I do by the kind of people who hit me up to do the kind of gigs that I'm called to do. And somehow anything that sounds, and this might sound weird, but like between the buried in me, anything that's just really electric guitar oriented, I get hit up to do, right?
That's funny because I feel like I can actually tell Brain from other guitar players because whenever he plays jazz, because I hear some of the metal attack, in the jazz stuff.
His picking, right? He's a heavy
Yeah.
picker.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I hear that. So I actually can tell him apart. Funny enough.
Good point.
Exactly. Sax players, in fact, most horn players slur things just to make their tongue not have to work so hard. And if you're not constantly playing legato, yeah, the guitar starts to sound like a rock guy in a jazz club, right? And it's like John Petrucci playing jazz. Not that I'm John Petrucci, right? But he picks every note, and we all know it, right?
So would you want to be in the position where it's like, oh, I want to sound like all the other jazz guys, or should you just embrace that metal influence and take it with
I
you?
embrace it. A band called The Faceless has really inspired me in the way that I bend in my note choice. Like, I actually think I do have note choice and certain resolution techniques that are kind of my idioms, right? And I know something about me now is I have fun. Because I got turned on to John Cage, right? And Steve Reich and the guys who made music out of these systems, right? And the guys who made silence music, and Ornette Coleman comes to mind, right? Because he would play like honk honk honk.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's music. That sounds musical to me. And I even wrote a piece that our friend Bo Kang right?
Zilla Zill on Spotify. Check it
That's
out.
his
That's
name.
Zilla
His name's
dot
Zilla Zill.
Zill.
He won't mind that. So, and it's very much in that
I
realm.
saw him earlier actually at Whataburger. So cool.
That's amazing, man. So now,
Yeah.
it's funny. So I've kind of embraced the whole what is music aspect, and I have comedy, right? And I'll fuse like common nationwide is on your side, or some kind of the entertainer, or just some kind of like I do all kinds of weird comedic little things when I play. I'll mock other people in the ensemble until they notice that I'm actively like mocking them, and then it becomes a thing, right? And it's like, you can't mock this.
So I just wanted to comment on that because that actually takes
I like
a
that.
lot of that takes a lot of skill to be able to put those things in musically, first of all, but also just to be thinking chordally and harmonically and putting those things in place. And it's funny that you mentioned that because, I mean, we all know the story of Miles Davis, right? So-and-so played a wrong note in Miles Davis's band, and like whenever someone would play a wrong note in Miles Davis's band, what would Miles Davis do? He would play that same note to make it no longer a wrong note, because once it's repeated, it's like the same. It's Gucci, right? But this is almost not to make your head big, brain, but that actually takes a ton of skill. And I actually failed doing that today at church, where we were
He
kind of
already
in
has a big head.
He's lost weight, actually. But I failed doing that today at church, where we were doing some like improv jam thing, and one of the players did something that I thought was super cool, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna quote that and repeat it in the next verse, and I straight up just played the wrong notes, and I was like, oh, that's so embarrassing. I was like, that's not what I thought it was. So yeah, there you go. You can do that cool stuff like quoting people. Or mocking them. I like mocking better because a quote is kind of something you pull from elsewhere. A mock is like you pulled it from them doing it seconds ago. I like that.
Exactly.
Mm.
So yeah, to put a pin in what I was saying, I kind of think that the kind of music I'm called to do and the way I kind of interact with everyone in the ensemble, anyone who's played bass in the big band or drums knows that you see me doing this the whole time, right? I'm looking back at you like, what's going on back there? I'll just look at a trumpeter until he makes eye contact with me. And then the whole rest of the show, like, we have a thing, right? I just get a kick out of the humanity of the performance aspect and kind of breaking that fourth wall, at least with your buddies on stage. You don't have to be silly that the audience can see, but yeah, I like to turn around and look at Josue if he does something cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, I find myself always looking at like whoever the lead is, right? Like if it's a lead singer or something most of the time because I'm following them, right? We're accompanists at that point. But then the only other person I ever really look at is the drummer. If I'm not looking at the lead, I'm looking at the drummer. Like it's like a 50-50 split.
As a drummer, I have my eyes closed. I don't want to look at everybody.
No, and I have a habit of going up to the bass drum, and I'll show you. I'm playing, right? I'm ripping it, and I put my foot on the kick drum of the drummer, and I'm looking right at him with my foot up on his kick drum, and no one's ever told me, hey, you're ruining my equipment, because I'm always really into the music, right? But there's something about rocking out with the drummer that's cool. Jacob,
sure.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, 100%, yeah.
We're the rhythm section to die for.
Except Jonathan.
Hi guys.
All right, that was like a good topic. I don't know if we actually got anywhere, but I feel learned. Should we move on? Josue, you have a topic.
No, I don't.
Dude,
We'll save it.
No, you totally had a topic.
I'm good, man.
Okay. Okay.
Are you sure you're good?
I'm sorry?
Are you sure you're good?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Well, no, it's not. It's not good. No.
It's a bad topic?
No, I think it's
You guys
this
are kind
delay.
of cutting off. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's this delay.
Yeah.
We'll save it. It actually is a good topic. So much so, like, he ran it by me, and I was like, I don't want to reply to that because I want to talk about it on air. But so it's some good stuff. But we'll move on to my topic then. We're actually right about the time to be on the last topic anyway. Brain, you had like too many other topics. Save those many topics for a different episode. Because you said you had like 4 ideas. So I want to talk about, I'm so glad that you mentioned Ornette Coleman because I'm actually going to talk about that. Yeah. So I mentioned this last week that I was maybe going to bring it up again in the following episode, and I decided that's what I was going to do. But I've got an even larger expansion on it now that I was thinking about it some more. So it's the same topic, but it's going to be a 2-parter. If we're cool with that, there's 2 parts to this main topic here, and it's going to be educational either way. So, oh no, do I not have this pulled up correctly? Give me a second. Okay. So
I can hear the crunching.
the head of my music department is a jazz musician who's pretty pretty respectable. He's the head of one of the SCI regions. If you don't know what that is, it's the Society of Composers Incorporated, and he's like in charge of the Texas Oklahoma region, something like that, right? And you can check his music out. His name is Dan Kavanaugh. But he has this TED Talk that he did called something, I think it's just called The Insistent Musician. And the idea is basically he goes in this talk about how there are musicians who insist that their music be written, performed, played, etc., even though it's not music that people are necessarily going to enjoy. Similar to, we're tying it together from the Milton Babbitt topic last week, right? But he's like, and he goes into detail about how we create art, right? That people might not actually, it doesn't make you happy, right? He talks about how animals, it's only humans that do this thing where we can create something that's intentionally to make you like feel bad, right? And so like the insistent musician is this idea of being a musician that is insistent on writing music and having it played no matter what, even if it's music that is, I mean, if it's really sad or really angry, kind of like how last week we talked about the 9/11 piece on the transmigration of souls, right? And music that makes you think, right? And music that is not pleasant to the ears. He talks about the example of like he might write music that sounds like 1,000 bees buzzing underwater, right? And so this idea is, as an insistent musician, as opposed to a musician who is making music for other people, do you guys, as musicians, find yourselves, would you consider yourself an insistent musician, right? Assuming like nobody else listened and whatever, you didn't even, let's say you didn't even get enjoyment out of it or something, but it is insistent upon yourself that you are to write this music, right, and make this thing happen. Would you guys consider yourself insistent musicians? Or do you consider yourself more like performers and, you know, writing pop music or something like that?
I don't think I'm a musician, so.
That's funny.
Can you clarify with just a tad bit more specificity?
Yeah. So, an insistent musician is someone who might go and have their music played and performed when there's more people on stage in the band than there are in the audience, or go to an open mic coffee shop and play music that nobody's going to like, right?
Yeah.
That kind of person.
Yeah. Would I consider myself an insistent musician?
Yeah.
No. No, personally, I play music people want to hear, and I don't have the courage to play the music people don't want to hear. Right? I don't have the courage to play honest and creative music that evokes emotions in people. Because that takes a lot of faith in yourself and a lot of investing in yourself. Right? Because there are going to be times where you spent $1,000 to make the piece, you're paying $3,000 to premiere it and to pay all the musicians, and there's 2 people in the audience.
Right.
Right. And your video camera capturing it is probably the best part of the whole evening.
Right.
Because then that can go on YouTube, and people might watch it then, if you're lucky, once you're dead. No, I'm just kidding about the last part, but kind of.
Well, I'm going to hold on to the once you're dead thing, because that's part of the topic, actually.
Okay.
Jonathan and Josue, do you have any input on that?
I'm an insistent
Really?
musician for sure.
Could you elaborate on that?
I'm sorry, what was that? Oh, okay, elaborate.
Give examples and elaborate.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole reason I got into music anyway was just so I could write the stuff that I wanted to write, you know. The stuff that I heard in my head, the stuff that I wanted to hear other people, you know, the stuff that I can't find on my searches to listen to, and I'm just like, well, why isn't it not out there? You know, well, I want it to be out there, so I'm just gonna do it.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
That's kind of how I learned to play a lot of instruments anyway. Just because, I mean, I didn't have any friends that would want to play my stuff, you know. So I just do it all myself. So I guess I save money that way. So I mean, I guess. But yeah, I've been in many situations where they're like, "Oh, yeah, let's just jam to some pop stuff, and yeah, you know, let's do it." And I'm just like, "Yeah, you'll know these songs," and then I don't know the songs, you know, because I don't really listen to the stuff that most people enjoy. I listen to the stuff that I like, and you know, I'll dabble with like, what was the other term you consistent musician. What was the other one?
Insistent musician.
I think that's the only term I used.
Yes.
And then the other was like what? Professional musician? Or what did you say?
Real
You said
musician.
something. Real musician, whatever. Yeah.
Sure.
I guess I'll dabble with the real musician here and there. But I feel like at my core, I just want to create music and, do it on my terms. And if people want to listen to it, awesome. And if they don't, that's okay too.
Aslay, I have a great question for you. So you're am I robotic?
Is it better now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question. You were talking about how you don't care. You just want to play. And you just want to play the music that's in your head, right? Why? And that's just a general question for Jacob, too, for everyone. Why is the music in your head important at all?
Because you're
Especially to me.
creating something that's not there. And it's just like, it's so rewarding. I feel that in itself. I don't know, for me anyway. I might have a God complex. I don't know.
Yeah.
Your contribution to humanity, doing the one thing you're good at, right, and giving something. Jacob, what do you have?
I'm gonna bounce off what someone in the chat actually said. They said I'm working on playing honest music, and I think that's actually the thing that hits the hardest home the hardest as like the insistent musician mentality. And this is something I'm thinking about lately because I'm writing this piece that I'm like, well, I'm trying to create it for like this specific audience and this specific ensemble and stuff. But I'm like, I realized recently, I was like, oh, my voice actually hasn't come out in this piece yet. And I'm at the point as a composer, I think I actually know what my voice sounds like now. And I know the things that are like unique. Funny enough, you can't find something unique in my bass playing, but you can find unique stuff in my compositional style, I think, that are me. But I haven't put that in yet.
Sure, actually.
To this piece. And I'm like, well, is the insistency to be honest? And I think it is, right? Music is a language, and we're all trying to speak, right? And I remember, so like, anger is something that I have not yet been able to create in a compositional setting. The anger that I feel within myself, which is, I don't express anger on the outward side, but on the inside, I have this intense anger about myself a lot, right? And I've tried to write pieces that express that, and I just haven't gotten it yet because most of it comes down to like slamming your forearms on the piano and creating just giant clusters, right? Josue one time was in a jam with me where I was super angry and I did this like angry solo and everyone was kind of just looking at me like, what is happening right now? Are you okay, man? And I don't know if you remember that, Josue, but that's what I have not yet mastered yet. But that's an honest thing in me that I feel like needs to be, I feel insistent to write the music regardless. In fact, fun fact about me, I felt so insistent to write the music that I loved, which was like technical progressive like metal with like grooves and all kinds of stuff. What y'all might not know is actually my first compositions like written down was something that I didn't tell anyone about that I was working on. And it was after I was fed up with all the Craigslist bands and stuff, I got with someone and I was like, look, what if we just did like tech death, but turned it electronic so I don't have to deal with finding performers, right? And so we did that. I wrote everything, an hour's worth of music in MIDI. He put it into FL Studio, and we like created this thing. Now he was a novice in FL Studio and I was a novice composer, But you can actually go check it out if you want. The Bandcamp is still up, eh-music.bandcamp.com. The project was called Event Horizon. And the only reason I'm bringing that up is not to plug myself, because I don't even want people hearing that music. That music doesn't represent me, I don't think. But I was so insistent upon writing the music, right? Because it was like, this is where my heart is, and I'm not finding anybody, like Josue was saying, finding other people to be his performers, right, to play the parts, where he learned all the instruments and stuff. I'm actually the opposite and just became a composer to write everything myself, right, because I couldn't find a guitar player who would write in the style that I wanted, or a drummer who would play and write in the style that I wanted. And so, I mean, that was a long, long rant. But, I mean, all of that to say, I think I'm an insistent musician, and I'm with Josue on this a bit.
There's a certain communication that I feel like I was always really introverted, and I never really liked talking to people, but I always thought, I feel like I do have something to say. I don't necessarily, I always had like, I was never good with speeches, and like I always got like tongue tied and stuff. But I was like, you know what? I can speak it through music. And that's what I always strive to do, and just to communicate something. That's why I still do it.
Which is funny, because you're a drummer, and most people would not say that a drummer does that. Drummers just like have fat grooves and stuff. They don't have that much to say. But I know you as a person, you definitely have a lot to say. Sorry, Brain had his finger up. I just wanted to interject that.
That's funny. I write on guitar, though.
He does. True. And it's so Josue's like, I have something to say, right? And Jacob, you said something about how you haven't done anger yet. And it's almost like drugs. Like, I've done meth, I've done PCP, I haven't done heroin yet, right? Like, it's like this checklist compositionally, right? Why is that? Why do we sometimes feel like if I haven't done something in every realm, then I haven't explored continually? That's interesting, right? We all have felt that. And this is really where I'm going with this. I'm wondering, like, why is there a spectrum of music that is in all different niches and different instrumentations? And what are we after as a species? I know this might sound deep, but it seems like we're probing like an octopus with all these tentacles into every genre and subgenre and every emotion and every little crack that can be explored sonically is being explored. And the real question is, what are we looking for? What are we digging up out of this? Right? I mean, doesn't that ever occur to y'all? What do y'all think about that?
This is so deep, man.
It is deep.
I know, man. I'm like processing.
But that's what I think about. It's like I said, the octopus with all these tentacles just probing and looking for who knows.
I don't know.
Because all music can give is like emotions, I think. I know.
Nobody's saying anything. I'm gonna say something if somebody says anything.
Well, okay.
Are we continuously wanting to get that high out of this stuff, or something
I think you
else?
So I have something to say on that a little bit. So the first answer, the more basic answer to one of the questions you said is, why do we explore these different things? And it's like, well, as a composer, and I hate to like indicate myself as a composer, because Josue writes music, Brain writes music, we all write music, right? So we're all composers. And first of all, we definitely try to delve into different territories musically, just because that makes us better musicians, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just feeling something different, you know? Like after I got finished writing my brass piece, I don't want to touch brass for like another year or something. But on a more like on a more existential level, why do we do it? I think it's just our voice, and humans are so absolutely complex and in depth that in the same way that happy is not something that accurately describes how a person is ever existing, it's something more like joyous or something even deeper and beyond that, right? You know, I think the reason is that there are emotion and spirit go too far in depth for us to accurately represent with any text, any art, any music, anything like that. But we are trying our best constantly to try to represent these things and represent our perspective of it. My perspective of anger is totally different than everyone else's.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
All right. So last little thing. So yeah, I've everyone has a different reason for why they kind of do this, right? And why we're doing it as a species, you know, is a good question. But something I'm really interested is what will we find? We are looking, like I said, in every possible cranny and nook and crevice that we can find, right? What will we find, and what can be found? Like in the year 3000, what will they have dug out of the study of vibrations across nitrogenous oxygenated air, right? Which is what we breathe. You know, on Mars, music is different, I'm sure, but man, it's just, what can they find? A healing frequency, a brown note? I don't know. Jacob, what you got?
So this is really, really good. First of all, do y'all have anything else, Jonathan or Josue, do you have anything to say before I take this and transition it a little bit?
I'm gonna be leaving soon.
Take it to the bridge, man.
All right, we're taking it transitionatory.
Here we go.
Remember to use the finger system if you want to say something. Yeah, so what can you find? What will you find? Well, the answer is Ornette Coleman. And that's actually where I was going with this, was that in this insistent music speech that Dan Kavanaugh gave, he mentions how Ornette Coleman went out on stage for some like elite jazz thing. I forget, I don't remember where, don't know where actually, I'm not sure he said, but some festival or something with a bunch of the elite jazz musicians, and went up and played. And when it was the time to solo, the solo happened, and all the other like elite jazz musicians like walked off stage while the solo was happening, because the solo was too far out there, and the music was like, they were like, what is this crap, you know? Like, and now where are we, right? Ornette Coleman was the insistent musician to get the voice out there, to get their voice out there, and now we've referenced Ornette Coleman like 3 times before even telling this story on the podcast and before even making it a topic.
True. That says something.
Right?
Jonathan, this sounds like a you thing.
I hate me right now, because it's like, whatever. Ornette Coleman, like, the thing is that like he could actually like solo on Donnelly. So it was crazy because he didn't. You know, his like band members said, "Why don't you play like bebop?" And then he's like, "I could like I know how to do it." And then he showed his band member that he did it, but he was like, "But I don't want to be. That's not my sound. That's not what I want to be doing." And it was like, I get you, That's cool. I read that in a book, I think.
You mentioned Donna Lee, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Quick, unless Jacob has some stuff about Ornette Coleman, I just have a quick question. Is Donna Lee the hardest thing to solo on, or is it something like Giant Steps,
I was
or
thinking
what
Giant
is?
Steps.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, I mean,
I don't think Giant Steps is the hardest thing to solo on, but it's like the rite of passage as a jazz musician. You have to be able to
Okay.
solo on Giant Steps to be
So
considered
like,
a jazz musician.
but before Giant Steps, there was like Donna Lee, and Donna Lee was kind of like also one of the rite of passages, or Cherokee was the rite of passage. So like Donna Lee's like up there. Honestly, I
For
don't
sure.
even get it. Yeah. Yeah. So he could play jazz like he could play jazz like, you know, Charlie Parker could play jazz, but he was like not gonna.
Wow.
That's also really good transition material to the next half of this, but I want it to happen first. I want a discussion on Ornette Coleman to happen first.
So does that mean we need to be amazing and then we can be different? Whatever.
Wait,
Well, no, I don't think so.
I
Actually,
don't-
you know what? No.
I should shred.
Wagner couldn't play an instrument for the life of him. Wagner was terrible and just like became the household name for opera.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take this, especially because time is running short and I have to actually do some work tonight. So taking the idea of doing what the others could do before, but saying that you don't want to do it because you want to create something new. We're going to bring this in a direction that probably none of you expected. Does anyone remember who it was, the music that started this podcast? It was Beethoven.
Beethoven, right?
Yeah.
You didn't give him a sign.
We're gonna talk about
Quartet or something.
it was a string quartet number 4, opus 18. So we're gonna talk a little bit about Beethoven as the insistent musician. So I'm gonna do a little educational moment for those listening, and I think Jonathan, because he hasn't taken like advanced music history or music literature courses or something. So as we all
He's
know,
music illiterate. Technically.
all
That
right.
was so funny.
Oh yeah. All right. So
Yeah, he's
as
not
everyone
amused.
knows, like Beethoven was deaf,
Deaf as
and
fuck.
he was the composer that, you know, every photo you see of him, he seems like angry and disheveled and all this stuff. And so Beethoven had 3 periods of music that we consider. His first, which is bringing back to the Ornette Coleman thing, his first was like the classical period, where he basically composed music that was very similar, to Mozart and Haydn and stuff. In fact, he studied with Haydn. Although, if you read, this is super nerdy, but if you read Fuchs's Gradus ad Parnassum, it talks about how Beethoven didn't actually work well with Haydn and didn't like him that much. So that's his first period, and then his second period is called like the heroic period. And he was starting to go deaf, or he either was completely deaf at this point, and it's called the heroic period because of his 3rd symphony, which is called Eroica, and it's basically his period started after the 3rd one, after the 3rd symphony. But his last period is the experimental period, and that's where he basically transitioned the classical to the romantic, right? And we all know Beethoven's Ninth and stuff like that. But Beethoven as a person struggled a lot because of his deafness, and people called him like extremely angry and aggressive, and you know, everyone knows the standard like image of him where he's got like his hair's up in frills and stuff, and it's like yeah. So Beethoven.
Jonathan, pay attention. This is for you.
I'm listening and I'm thinking about John Coltrane.
So Beethoven wrote something called the Heiligenstadt Testament, which when he wrote it, it was essentially he wrote it to his brothers, and it was essentially a suicide note that didn't end in suicide. And what the gist of the note says is basically like, I need to reveal to you guys that I'm going deaf. I've been trying to hide it, and this deafness is a huge reason for the person that I am in my struggles and this and that. And I want to end my life. But I'm going to read you, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to read 2 sections of this Heiligen Stadt Testament. And I would encourage everyone to look up the English translation, because this thing is super deep and super powerful. It blew my mind. But I'm going to read two little sections for you if that's cool.
We're game.
Go for it.
So this first section, yikes. This first section is actually how it starts. By the way, new laptop, woohoo!
Hey.
All right. This first section is how it starts. It says, "O you men who think or say that I am malevolent, stubborn, or misanthropic, how greatly do you wrong me. You do not know the secret causes of my seeming. From childhood my heart and mind were disposed to the gentle feelings of goodwill. I was even eager to accomplish great deeds, but reflect now that for 6 years I have been a hopeless case, aggravated by senseless physicians, cheated year after year in the hope of improvement, finally compelled to face the prospect of a lasting malady whose cure will take years or perhaps be impossible. Born with an ardent and lively temperament, even susceptible to the diversions of society, I was compelled early to isolate myself, to live in loneliness, when I at times tried to forget all this. Oh, how harshly was I repulsed by the doubly sad experience of my bad hearing, and yet it was impossible for me to say to men, 'Speak louder, shout, for I am deaf.'" And so, what Beethoven's talking about here, obviously, is that there's shame on him as being a composer and a musician for being deaf, and he's constantly dealing with this, and he's angry, and kind of makes him a little bit of this ruffian, and he goes more into detail of it. And while that seemed like while some of it might seem like a little edgy still, of like, oh, I'm excusing my poor behavior, he really, later in the article, he really goes into how like much he loves people, right? And actually, funny enough, later in the article, he talks about this article never got released until after his death, by the way. And later in the article, he tells the reader, he says, "Release this upon my death so people will know my suffering and know the cause for my actions," or whatever. But until then, he doesn't want it released because he doesn't want people knowing that he's deaf, because it's so shameful. And so then this is the next big portion. This is about 3/5 of the way through or something. "But what a humiliation when one stood beside me and heard a flute in the distance, and I heard nothing. Or someone heard the shepherd singing, and again I heard nothing. Such incidents brought me to the verge of despair, but little more and I would have put an end to my life. Only art it was that withheld me. It seemed impossible to leave the world until I had produced all that I felt called upon me to produce. And so I endured this wretched existence, truly wretched, an excitable body which a sudden change can throw from the best into the worst state. Patience. It is said that I must now choose for my guide." And so,
Amen.
yeah, and I would encourage everyone to read that whole article. That thing's awesome. But essentially, what he's saying is, I'm not ending my life, even though I'm at the point of ending my life, because I am an insistent musician, and I need to write this art for people.
Amen.
That's cool.
We'll take a moment with that.
I mean,
All right? That's a good moment, boys.
well, so
And I'm so glad to be on here with y'all. And you know what? Beethoven would be thrilled to know that so many years after his passing, he has, through a long series of butterfly effect like events, caused 4 people to be in a webcam chat talking about him.
For sure. And I think it's so interesting. So one of the points made about the insistent musician is that these insistent musicians don't really get credit for everything that they do until after they're dead. And that's actually probably true for most of them. And that's probably, I think that's included in Beethoven, because people during Beethoven's time didn't like him because he was so angry and aggressive and he was hard to work with, right? And it wasn't until after that people were like, into the Romantic period, everyone was comparing everything to Beethoven's Ninth. That's the greatest piece of music and stuff. And then I'm sure this Heiligenstadt Testament helped with that. I don't know how it was released or how much people were able to read it or anything like that. But the idea is, Beethoven was 100% an insistent musician, so much so that he had tons of shame on him and like pain and grief to the point of wanting to end his life. But he was so insistent as an insistent musician that he knew he had a role and he had stuff to say, that he kept going for like years, and I think it was like decades after he became like fully deaf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you got, Brain?
Aren't we blessed to live in 2020, 2019? Like, if Beethoven were around now, he could get his hearing fixed no problem. He'd be right back. And I wanted to ask, was his hearing loss not caused by a cup that he drank from or a water supply near him? Or was it beatings from his father as a child defending his young brothers? I've heard
both of those, yeah.
Okay. Jacob, we depend on you.
Oh, well, I was going to say, there's no actual clear evidence, but it's my understanding that they found large amounts of, like, a hair, right? A hair of Beethoven or something that they preserved had, like, a ridiculous amount of lead in it or something like that. And so they assume that he was drinking tons of lead water that caused it, something like that. But nothing's confirmed.
You know what? I was in the same room when Jacob heard that anecdote, and along with the lock of hair that was taken when Beethoven died, was all over his bed. There was music, apparently. He was still working on it, from who we heard, right? And also that in the hair, there was no, like, analgesics. There were no painkillers. There was no alcohol. There were no drugs. There was nothing in his system that was inhibiting him from doing his best work. That even though he was in pain and he was on the decline, he still wanted to be as coherent and as present as he could be. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we all heard about that same story. And I didn't know anything about Beethoven like that until I got to music school. And this harkens all the way back to the first episode we ever put out, But
go to music school.
I'm glad I know about that now. And I know the general public knows none of this. And they think Beethoven is just some random character from history like Ben Franklin.
They just know, ba-na-na-ta. That's all they know.
Exactly.
And for Elise, right?
Yeah. That's my vocal rendition of.
So we're lucky to be alive now. We can get that fixed.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting though. I mean, I think insistent musicians should. Probably, I don't want to say we should give them more attention necessarily, because I think there's probably a lot of people out there who are insistent musicians but don't have the way to properly articulate what they're saying. And so,
Someone's at my door and says,
okay. So I think there's probably insistent musicians out there who are writing music that we would just call like bad music, maybe 4-chord songs or something, because they're not educated enough. So I think it might be risky to say we give more attention to insistent musicians. But, wow, everyone's just leaving right now. I guess that's the end of the stream. Bye, guys. Yeah.
I'm still here, I guess, man. Oh, there he is.
okay. That's the thing about being in a college town and being semi-recognizable and notable is people knock on your door just to say hey.
You're cool.
That's a
Thank
way
you.
to end that conversation. Any last thoughts on Ornette Coleman, insistent musicians, Beethoven?
Yeah, you know, I don't really want to write music that gets noticed when I'm dead. I hate to say it, but I'm not going to be around for that. And I want to write stuff that people are going to enjoy and listen to and dance to in the here and now. And a lot of the people who we look at as great heroes, and a topic I was considering throwing out is like top 5 bands ever, or any kind of like top, you know, some kind of hierarchical categorization of the best bands ever, the best players ever, you know. But the best ones I can think of played to exactly what was relevant in their time. Count Basie played dance music. Glenn Miller did dance music. You know, the Foo Fighters and all these newer bands do a different thing. You know, the Stadium Country guys. I hate to say it, but they do that because it's lucrative. There is a market for it, and it makes people happy, and they don't see anything wrong with it.
No, there's nothing wrong with it.
No. So every genre has its purpose to fulfill the needs of right now and to make people happy immediately. And I kind of like to make people happy now.
See, the smart thing to do.
Oh, go on.
The smart thing to do is go for that country career, make all your money, and then do the music that you want to do.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah, Taylor Swift kind of did that, right?
Cash money.
And then Josue was
Well,
like,
there's a
I
saying-
like Taylor Swift. He said that last week.
That's true.
Have you ever heard this? Don't live in peace. Don't die in peace. Right? That's kind of saying, like, I want flowers now, not on my grave. Like, if you want to be in peace with me as we're alive right now, today. Right? And, yeah.
Did I just lose connection to everyone? I may have just lost connection to everyone.
We can hear you.
bro.
I don't mean the rant, but even if it's Stadium Country, playing what makes people smile now.
That means the stream can't hear us.
Hang on though. Yeah. Was it my internet that went out? I think it was. Y'all are back. Y'all are loading. Okay.
Can you hear us?
Y'all are totally back. Yeah, you're fine. I just missed all of that.
It's that time, boys.
Well,
It's that time.
I love y'all.
Wait.
Okay.
So, final thoughts, because this was part of Jonathan's topic, and we didn't talk on it. You get one go, maybe two max.
Wait.
Best music duos through history. You get one, maybe 2 answers max. What?
Oh, I'm just gonna say that Brian's saying that now, but in 20 years he's gonna be like going through that weird Miles Davis phase where it just doesn't even make sense. It's like that funk phase of Miles Davis where it's just like, you know, I really never
What are you
listened to
doing
it.
right now? Exactly.
Yeah. In 20 years, that's gonna be Brian.
All right, greatest duos. Jonathan first.
Cheech and Chong.
Music duos.
Jonathan, it was your topic.
Oh well, that's just really hard. I mean, I have so many, but I
Just
like,
get
I
one.
don't
Just
know.
one. Everyone gets one. Go. Brain, go.
I'll come back.
Bill Evans and Miles Davis.
Tight.
Why?
This way?
Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones.
Tight. Good choice. Jonathan?
Okay, I'll just say Takuya and Jose James.
Tight. And my answer is George and Ira Gershwin.
Can
Cool.
Yeah.
Can I make an honorable mention?
Sure.
Bach and the harpsichord.
Or the organ.
Honorable mention, boys.
Sure.
Come on now.
Yeah.
All right,
Iggy and
boys.
Pop, John and the Mayor, potato and salad, all that stuff. All right, guys. Well, good podcast.
Is it that time?
I think it's that time.
It's that time,
We'll
boys.
see you all
Yeah.
next week. Oh, we didn't ask questions. Oh well. See you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
We love you.